and welcome to another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes.com, with me as your host, Chris Action Force the Movie McLeod, aka Diagnostic 80. Joining me today to discuss the recent DJ Caruso movie news rumours are Erik, My Little Pony the Movie Araña, and Brian Shergar the Movie Hickey. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. So, news broke today on AMC that DJ Caruso is in contract talks with the powers that be in regards to directing the third instalment of the G.I. Joe live-action movie franchise. The director has a number of big-budget films under his belt like Eagle Eye, Disturbia, and XXX3 The Return of Xander Cage, as well as the successful TV series The Shield. But what does this mean for G.I. Joe? Who is excited and who is dreading this development? Let's start with Brian up in Ireland. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Chris. Doing great. Until I saw this news post on the Full Force Facebook page. And normally I'm the positive one in the group, but I'm not looking forward to this. I think, okay, we've got two Joe movies out there.
Yeah. They
haven't done really as well. Certainly critically haven't done as well as we would have liked, and as fans, we have a lot of kind of misgivings about them. We tolerate those movies, we put up with them because they're Joe-based movies, but it's like as if Paramount or Hasbro, they haven't learned that we need more than special effects and stunts to deliver a great Joe movie. And I think DJ Caruso, I had a look at the XXX trailer. I haven't seen like Eagle Eye, I haven't seen Disturbia, but I'm aware of the XXX movies, and they're crap. I'm just going to come out now and say it. I'm just making up for Paddy here. They are crap movies. They rely 100% on people being fooled by special effects and great stunts, and all credit to the amazing stunt crew that work on those films, and the camera crew that choreograph all those scenes and film those scenes.
Yeah,
there's great talent in there, but from a storytelling point of view, there's nothing to the stories. From a character development point of view, I don't care about the characters, and neither does anybody else. And if G.I. Joe is going to deliver an excellent movie, whether it follows on the story from Rise of Cobra and Retaliation, or whether they completely reboot it, they need to put a great story together, tell it well, and put characters into that story that we actually care about. And I don't know if this DJ Caruso guy is the guy for the job.
Okay, that's a powerful stance. It's one that I probably am very, I'm close to kind of being in. I do want to give the guy some benefit of the doubt, and then maybe see what comes of it. But at the same time, by doing that, you are completely forgetting what's come before. And like you say, the XXX movie is, that one that he directed is basically garbage. And I know Justin was messaging us earlier and saying that he started watching the beginning of it and was just like, WTF, what am I watching here? And I kind of feel like with action movies, they don't need to be, I'm not after a Shakespearean friggin' play. I'm not after something that's got real core depth and all this kind of stuff. I just want an element of substance to these films, and so far with Rise of Cobra and Retaliation, it has been corny as and it's just so poorly, everything's really just poorly written. And I think if there was, I just feel like you look at, so it's recently come out as well in recent news for instantly, basically, that Christopher Eccleston hated working on Rise of Cobra. Now, Erik, what are your feelings towards actors that kind of come out like this and say they hate these films? But what are your thoughts on, first of all, Christopher Eccleston doing this, and then we'll come back to the DJ Caruso thing. But tell us about Doctor Who.
Okay, first off, I'd like to state that Christopher Eccleston is my second favorite Doctor Who after
Tennant.
No. I actually like Tennant a lot.
Yeah.
But I loved that first short run with Eccleston is so amazing. and it's partially because he is an amazing actor.
He is, yeah.
And I like that I kind of like when actors do this and stuff. It kind of makes me chuckle. They're kind of whining about getting paid a lot of money to do something that they're really not happy about. But also, it's nice to see the creative end,
like an artist.
Of an artistic endeavor, and a film is an artistic endeavor, whether it's a good film or a bad film.
Yeah.
To see the artist have the power to say what they really think about something that they worked on it's really relieving to me, because like as an artist and as a toy designer, there are times where I can't and I won't say something about either whether it's a competitive item or whether it's something I worked on. I'm very mum about a lot of stuff and about a lot of things because I don't have the power in those situations.
Yeah.
The toy companies do. So I think it's interesting that I guarantee you, if you sit down Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a soundproof room with no recording devices, he's going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
He's just not quite.
Sienna Miller's come out saying that she regretted it. Yeah. Channing Tatum wanted to be out of it, and they wanted to be killed off.
So much so that they killed him off.
Exactly.
They killed off Duke, like the main character.
Like all they could convince him to do was turn up in a few scenes at the beginning, just so they could kill him off.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just feel like it was one of those things that I don't know. Okay, let's take Rise of Cobra first as a film. Personally, to me, I think it fails on multiple levels, and I know a lot of everyone will come back to me and they'll say, but it's like an action movie and you can just kind of lose yourself in it. I enjoy good action movies, don't get me wrong. Die Hard, wonderful action film. Those kind of films, there's a substance. There's like a point A to point B scenario, and yes, it's kind of dumb, crazy action and stuff, but there is substance to it. There's good writing, there's good humor, there's good characters. There's good bad guys. There's really good guys, and it's like, it's almost like a bit of he's like an anti-hero, rough around the edges. I don't know why I'm using Die Hard on its own here, but it's a good action film. Rise of Cobra fails for me on so many levels. Okay, they go nuts CGI to the point where it's beyond worse than the prequel Star Wars movies. Like, it's like, they've polished... I
love those movies.
In terms of the visual aspect, like, everything doesn't look right. It doesn't look real. It's like half animation, half real live action. And when it's live action, everything looks fake. The sets they were on, everything looks wobbly and weird. It's almost like if they'd gone like ultimately ridiculous, gone just completely balls deep 80s throwback mental, right? I would have accepted that, and I'd have loved it, and I'd have thought this is great, because this is really the only way G.I. Joe can be done in that vein. Other than that, you have to go the other direction, and you have to make it super serious and dark. I don't think there's a happy medium here. I think the middle ground is Retaliation, where you've got this kind of like it wants to take itself more seriously, but the writing just still doesn't hold up right. And I just feel like, okay, yeah, I on these films all the time. And they're not for me, fair enough. They've made money, but critically, it's pretty much across the board. They're awful films. Like, a casual person that is not a G.I. Joe fan, if they're going into that film, I know a lot of people that went to see that film that weren't Joe fans and thought it was garbage. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is. I think the people that really kind of have any connection to it, like Brian said earlier, was about that kind of G.I. Joe thing. Because it's G.I. Joe, you've got like something to hold on to, and it's like, yeah, it's G.I. Joe, and I can see the characters coming to life here, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's awful. I think film goers deserve better.
Oh yeah, if you took G.I. Joe out of it,
yeah,
if you took the G.I. Joe theme out of those movies, they would just be bland action movies.
Yeah,
and and it's only the G.I. Joe fans really that have any kind of attachment to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, okay, so you take a look at Rise of Cobra. It failed on a plot level. It failed on a character level.
Yeah.
We just didn't care about Duke. We didn't care about Ripcord. We didn't care about Scarlet. We didn't care about Baroness or Baron Ironblood's character, or even Destro's character.
Nice.
when
Baron
you get
Ironblood,
to,
I like that.
sorry, Cobra Commander.
No, you're right. It's definitely Baron Ironblood.
But it shows you how many times I've watched the movie. When you get to Retaliation, I think John Chu does a much better job with the characters. So, I mean, it's not a perfect world, but definitely, even Duke feels like he's got a little bit more depth to him, albeit he's only in it for a couple of scenes.
The depth is 6 feet underground, surely.
Dwayne Johnson does a great job as Roadblocker. We like him as a character. Firefly is a little bit more interesting, but it's absolutely riddled with plot holes as well. So it fails from a story. Like, the story's not great, and it doesn't engage us, or we don't care enough about the story to care enough about to make up for it with the characters.
Yeah.
Where I'd love to see them go with the third movie is, the secret to making great movies is not a secret. Okay, get a good story, get good characters, and put stunts in, put CGI in. That's fine. It has its place. But after you get the story and the characters right. And this is done really well with loads of films. Action movies aimed at kind of, younger audiences, or action movies aimed at older audiences. It's being done right now. And, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, okay, it's had there's 18 movies have come out in that so far.
Yeah.
Some of them have been more successful than others, but you can see how they've got this cinematic universe. It's been running for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe they're not going to win any Oscars, but certainly you're looking at, much better standard of action movies and pop culture characters than, a bit more successful certainly than G.I. Joe has ever been.
Yeah.
And I think that's a model that we really need to be looking at as fans. We want to see that kind of model applied to the Joe universe.
Yeah.
And if Hasbro can get their heads around that, I think it'll put us in a better place.
I think, I agree with that. And I think I'm not it's not all doom and gloom at the moment. Like, I'm not thinking DJ Caruso is the worst choice for this, situation. I just can't see where anything's going to change necessarily. I can't see where the things that need improving, I don't know where they're going to be improved going this route. Now, I could be completely wrong, and come, I don't say the first trailer drops, everyone could be like, wow, that looks amazing. The actual film could be amazing. Realistically, I don't think I'm going to be going through these emotions at that time. I feel like it's going to be more like, oh look, it's more of the same. It's more like, I don't know, characters I don't really care about that I should be caring about. What was amazing though, and let's move out of Rise of Cobra and Retaliation now and focus on 3. It was the fact that we got 2 really good toy lines out of those films. So I'm now thinking, well, at least if we get a third film, is there going to be like an accompanying toy line that could be, something that, again, at least gives us Joe fans a little bit like of a brilliant, we've got some product at retail. And then I think, hang on, we don't have any retail places to sell it now. Now that Toys R Us has imploded. But, at least I'm kind of thinking, well, we could have some cool, Target exclusives.
Yeah, and that's actually something I've said for years about Transformers is Transformers is putting out some really fun stuff right now with like the combiners and then the headmasters and then all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the current run, the Power of the Primes, and like it's been really great stuff, but all of that wouldn't have been possible if the movies hadn't kept the toys on the shelf for so long.
Yeah.
And there's not a single one of those Transformers movies that I think has a single redeeming value to Transformers as a long-term like legacy. They're really terrible, terrible films, every single one of them. And I'll tell you, I would sooner sit down and watch Rise of Cobra again before ever watching one of those Transformer films.
I must admit, I agree with you on 2, 3, 4, 5, and wherever they are at the moment. But the first one I really enjoyed, but the rest have been basic dumpster fires. And I'm again, it's the same thing. I appreciate that they exist though, because they give me masterpiece figures and they give me
exactly. Like they've kept it alive enough to keep it on the shelves no matter what. And that has given us, a couple of really great toy lines and stuff like that. The problem with the G.I. Joe films is they're not even good enough to do that.
Well, that's a really good point, Eric, because the silver lining with any G.I. Joe movie is that, okay, we're going to get, you would assume we're going to get some toys, but if the movies are really not able, if they can't sustain the movies going forward by making a G.I. Joe 4, G.I. Joe 5, and if you're relying on movies then to get toys out, well, we're going to run out of toys pretty quick.
Exactly. And the other thing, about this new film is that this is one of those things where Michael Bay hasn't had enough clout and enough power, and also just enough psychotic temper tantrums that basically Hasbro had no control over what he was doing.
Yeah.
They basically just had to get on their knees and kiss his ass to have his name attached to the movie, which was probably more important to Hasbro than a good movie.
Yeah.
They're not attaching people like this to the G.I. Joe movies. Like the other directors, and I would probably say the same will be true for this DJ Caruso guy.
Yeah.
Who I had never heard of, and it turns out I've only ever seen one thing he's ever directed, and that was an episode in the first season of Smallville. So, I don't even know. I don't know if he's a good director or not. Really, judging by his body of work, he does not make the types of movies I go see.
Yeah.
More than anything, whether they're good or bad, I just would never know because they're not the types of films I watch.
Yeah.
But
which is a purely subjective kind of thing. And again, this whole thing is all our personal feelings. This is not, we're not exactly. You could make there could be a really good film out of this, but I don't know. You got to look at what's there already to kind of make a decision on what you might expect to see. But again, that could be thrown out the window. You could go a completely different direction, and we could get something with substance, which would be great. I just, at this point in time, I just can't see where that's going to happen.
The thing is if Hasbro, the people who think they're creative but are not creatives, get involved again, they're going to push around this director and force things like gun kata into the movie, or say, things like that, that's
forcing toy gimmicks into it, which don't actually even end up in the film at the end. That is unbelievable, wasn't it? I mean,
but he's wearing all the props.
Yeah.
But he never uses them like that.
That was so weird, wasn't it? I mean, there was the whole lead up in the comics, the prequels to the film and everything, and I was like, oh no, okay, so they're going this way with it. Then the figures came, we started seeing the figures, and there was going to be no ankle articulation, and then there was a piece fused to his hand, and everyone was like, well, that's not going to work, and it was just all kind of a bit mental. And there's just, if I could go down the list of all of the crazy stuff that's happened with, and it's a long list of things that only seem to happen with the G.I. Joe franchise. You never hear of this stuff with Transformers. You never hear of this stuff with that. And then you just go through this laundry list of things, like the delay of the film coming out because they wanted to do it in 3D.
Oh my god, that's right.
The reshoots,
that was crazy.
The reshoots and everything, and then having to recall the figures that had already gone out to certain retailers. So, some of the product was out there, some of it had to come back. Then there was a huge wait before it went back out again, and they lost the momentum of actually, people didn't care at that point when it actually finally came out. The films, I think that they were pushing it back because they didn't want it to come out at the same time as, I think, Spider-Man. There was a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so I think that they almost used that as an excuse, possibly, but that still had to happen. I mean, it was one thing after the other, and then the Battle Catters thing, all of a sudden wasn't in the film, and then the toys, have got them, and it's like, what? I don't really get what's going on here. None of it makes sense. And then I suppose after the fact, you hear a lot of stuff like Channing Tatum and Sienna Miller and now Christopher Eccleston, who would rather slit his throat than be on set. And he said similar things about the Thor movie as well. He said that he really regrets kind of whoring himself out for those particular
I'm
parts.
laughing so much just imagining him complaining about having to whore himself out while he lodges his $2 million check or whatever he got paid into the bank.
I mean, that's another thing, isn't it? It's like, I mean, if that is a problem, that's probably the first world problem, or that's the celebrity problem right there, isn't it? It's got nothing to do with a normal human being.
Well, I'll tell you now, as a creative person, I would sell my art like a whore for 2 million quid.
Did you say?
I'd do that.
Did you say,
and then
did you say art or?
I did, yes. and then I would, I'd spend it all on action figures.
Exactly. Clearly, he wasn't a Joe fan.
Figures.
Yeah, Boss Fight Studio figers. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You'll have to spend that kind of money for the upcoming Kickstarter.
Yeah.
The all-in package.
All-in package is going to be $2.5 trillion US. I can guarantee you that.
That's only €50. It's all right.
And actually, we do have a news burst coming up about that, so obviously that'll be around the corner. Anything else to add on this, guys? Any more hatred towards? No.
Just super quick, right?
Yes.
I'm having a look at Rotten Tomatoes, and Disturbia gets 69% on the tomato meter,
Sure.
and 77% audience score. And it says, aside from its cliched resolution, Disturbia is a tense, subtle thriller with a noteworthy performance from Shia LaBeouf. And then taking a quick look at Eagle Eye, also directed by DJ Caruso, 27% on the tomato meter and 62%. Pretty high audience scores here, in fairness.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, maybe are we, the wrong people here to be judging DJ Caruso?
Actually,
maybe we don't represent the audience.
Yeah, I was going to say actually that Disturbia was a good film. Like, I enjoyed it. I did actually write in response to Troy Osgood, who put a post on, who posted on the link that we kind of put up about this whole thing. He'd mentioned that Eagle Eye and Disturbia are good films, and I kind of I half agree with that. I enjoyed Disturbia, but Eagle Eye, it's forgettable. Like it's been and gone, and there hasn't really left any kind of imprint. But Disturbia, I'd have to go as far as to say yes, that's a pretty good film. And I would say the same thing as well. Like, the resolution at the end is very, obvious, but at the same time, it's tense. It's really good. Kind of throwback to it's like a really dark Burbs, but it should be called Disburbs. But no. But yeah, I have to say that I think if everyone goes to see it and it's successful, I don't give a shit if it's a shit movie or not. If it's a successful film and but it's good enough to get more films and do the same thing that Transformers has done, because I must admit I can't stand the Transformers movies. They're awful. The first one I really, really loved. I love the fact that they were really, I don't know, a bit more careful with it. And then the ones after that, it was just an absolute mess. I mean, the format went out the window, or it just increased and exaggerated, and I just can't watch them. They're ball sacks for me. But again, if G.I. Joe can do that, I'll happily say, okay, they're not for me, but look, I'm getting Masterpiece Joes, or I'm getting a line of G.I. Joe figures. I'm happy. So yeah,
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Overall, I'll be real honest. I still don't think. I really don't think this will happen. I don't think G.I. Joe 3 will happen.
Do you think it will be G.I. Joe 3, or do they keep saying G.I. Joe 3 when they just mean the new G.I. Joe movie? Because I was convinced it was going to be a reboot.
Yeah, it could go either way. I mean, the second one, there's almost so many plot holes in retaliation that from the first movie, that it would have been better if they hadn't connected them, even though they had some of the same actors. Like, when you watch that second G.I. Joe miniseries from back in the 80s, the way the first miniseries ended is not the way the second one began.
I know, everything looks different. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, almost who cares? Like, if they had just made a movie that was only marginally connected with the same actors but had its own kind of thing going. I mean, seriously, the Transformer movies, they keep making money hand over fist, and they are barely connected. It's kind of the same plot with the same MacGuffin with a different name every film.
Yeah.
It's the same thing over and over again, so why not just do that with G.I. Joe then? And I mean, that's how the old animated series were too. Like, it was the same kind of MacGuffin over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, just
We have to
energy
go
on.
around cold.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I hope it can be done. I hope it can be successful, and I hope we can get something out of it, even if it's not a good film. And yeah, but again, I don't know. Lack of faith. My lack of faith is disturbing. I know, but I think that
Is your lack of faith Disturbia?
Nice, and then it all comes round full circle. Brilliant. Hell. So yeah. DJ Caruso to direct G.I. Joe 3. He's been in contractual talks at the moment. I'm not even sure. I'm guessing this is more or less a, you know, he'll be on board. We will see soon, and we'll bring you that news as and when it comes. Yeah, so that's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-hosts Erik and Brian. See you next time, and as always, Full Force 3: The Return of Eddie Inman.
Oh, brilliant.
Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of these platforms with feedback, questions, or to say, who do you think you are? A serious operation now? No, not even close. Look out for more of these news bursts that we are posting on the Facebook page from now on. Full Force.